Namaste everyone. So today we're going to discuss a new topic which is really interesting and also is a very deeper topic. So it talks about discipline, talks about practice, it's talk about concentration, meditation, and also breathing, like regulating the breath, how to breathe, and also completely reach the oneness, the final absorption. So how it is like that. In Yoga Sutras, by Patanjali, he mentioned as Astanga, Astanga Yoga. Ashta means 8, anga means limbs or parts or components. So it's a Astanga Yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga. So which is, they are like the steps to reach the oneness or samadhi, we call it like the 8th step. They're like a kind of a ladder, right? They have rungs. You often take one step after reach that final state of that oneness or absorption of the samadhi. Let's get into the how to define each one with a little clear explanation. So basically, before that, I would like to share. Practicing the limbs of yoga, it eliminates the impurities of the body and mind, and it really reveals the more light of knowledge. That's what's said by Patanjali in Yoga Sutras 2.28. He said that, and also leading to the continuation, there's a continuity in your practice, in anything you do, and also a keen sense of discernment. Like the viveka, gets better often, swadhyaya, self-study, and also keen discernment practice, abhyasa, practice, and all this stuff. Well, these 8 limbs of yoga it's like the set of practices that develop our civility in society and also prepare us for our journey inward to discover of our true nature. That's what it is. So let's just take a look. What are those 8 limbs? The first one is Yama. You try to repeat after me. I know I may not hear you guys or hear you, but you can just try to repeat after me. Yama, niyama, and asana. I stayed some there. Pranayama, Pratyahara, dharana, Dhyana, samadhi. So Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. What is Yama? The first one. Yama is literally, it's like the kind of like a external behavior, kind of you can say discipline, external discipline. Yama is actually this like the first limb. It's like the kind of like the guidelines to establish a strong ethical attitude, or kind of a backbone. It's kind of like the backbone. It's like the external behavior or disciplined. And also it supports the other 7 limbs. They're like if you can see, I kind of draw a wheel here. Can you see that? They're like the spokes. Everything is a connector. Yeah, so that's the Yama, is the external disciplines. And they have components that we're going to discuss in our other video. But I'm just going to go what is like the main wisdom. So the Yama, it provides the guidelines, establishing the strong ethical backbone to support the remaining the limbs. Good. So if we move on to the second one called, what is it? Niyama. Niyama is more internal disciplines. It's like more inwards. If the first one is outwards, the second one is inwards. The second limb niyamas is actually, it's more like the personal practice. It's like a taking care of ourselves. I repeat again, it's more like a personal practice. It's more inwards. It's like the more personal practice, taking care of ourselves. And also it includes Kriya Yoga, which is the objective set by Patanjali. And also these are like weakened by this negative mental afflictions we talk about before, the kleshas. So this is like the second limb, basically more like a internal, like inward disciplines which help the personal practices. That's the second limb, which is called niyama. And the third limb, which is a famous one. What is that? Asana. If you guys can see here, asana. So that's like posture, meditation seat. In Patanjali, he actually mentioned a posture or asana should be steady and comfortable. But in modern yoga, nowadays we do yoga, it's like involved so many forms and so many a lot of postures involved. Some might be very challenging, some can be like literally tough, by doing those asanas, literally even not even doing, by looking at the person you feel so exhausted, it's really literally demand a lot of effort and constant diligent practice. Abhyasa we call it's really required a lot of physically demand. And so that's like the asana, the third one. It's more like the physical practice. It's more physical, the body expression. The body should be more flexible, mobility, stability, balance, endurance, strength, focused practices, like requires a lot of physically demand. And for that, you really need a good rest and a great diet, and because you need more energy, like nutrition and power. Anyways, if we come back to the third limb, this is like the most well-known and commonly practiced everywhere in the world. Asana means posture. In a modern yoga, we more focus on the posture practice. And also there are people doing pranayama, meditation and all, but mostly once people say yoga, their first thing is like a pose, they think of it. But in a Yoga Sutras in Patanjali mention much more. There are a lot that we're discussing today, that 8 limbs of the yoga, the components or the rungs of the ladder to reach the oneness or samadhi, like absorption. Well, so that's actually the physical body preparation for the meditation as per Patanjali, what he said now. But we often do a lot of sequences and practices, and yes, it is a matter of choice. Some might not practice the same way as you do, or my body rolls the same way as others do, you know what I mean, like everyone practices differently. But in Patanjali, he mentioned asana should be steady and more comfortable, like seated, like mostly meditation seat, like you're in a meditation seat. So that's the third limb, physical body practice. Okay, that's asana. The fourth one is called Pranayama. Pranayama. Prana means like the life, the vitality, the force, the energy that we have. The breathing. So that this is like the fourth limb actually serving to remove any obstructions in the flow. And also actually pranayama, it gives more great health for the nervous system, and it's when you regulate your breath and you begin to minimize and quantize your emotional fall and rise, and also it is to help to the breathing can help to reduces anxiety, stress, depression, and also a lot of benefits. Each pranayama has its own benefit. Well, we're not going to touch on more deeply topic about what are the styles about pranayama, but pranayama basically is about breath control or breathing correctly. And also, as per Patanjali mentioned, it is serving to remove any obstructions in the flow of our life force, our body energy. It's very simple. You are alive now because you're breathing. Isn't it so? But in yoga, it said there's a way of breathing, regulating the breath. It's just helpful for the next fifth limb, or for your body, for your practice now. So let's look onto the fifth limb. The fifth limb is Pratyahara. It means withdrawal of senses. Hearing, seeing, tasting, or in generally like the sensory objects. It creates a lot of attachment, desires, or craving, as per we talked about before, like you craving constantly, like you want it more and more. So this is like this this pratyahara is like the basically turning out the sensory distractions, like naturally occurs as a side effect of the breath regulation, and it's actually taken away us from our focus. So you want to just like withdraw, like literally you don't want to like kind of like withdrawal from the senses, but doesn't mean that exactly withdrawal. It's just like tuning out sensory distractions that naturally occurs as a side effect of the breath regulation, so which is connected earlier with the pranayama. So you want to like literally stay focused, but not to be distracted by the sensory objects. So it's like tuning out the sensory distractions. That's pratyahara, or withdrawal of the senses. All right. So that's the fifth limb. And if you move on to the sixth limb, it's called dharana, concentration, which is so hard for us, even for me too. It requires quite a lot of, I don't say effort, quite a lot of focus you need to concentrate on one thing. Not like doing things at the same time, so many, but one at a time can be more helpful than the regular doing stuff, like so many stuff. Now it creates like certain impact on the mind now. But we often like to do the multitask. Me too, from my experience, I often like doing the multitasking, but I kind of like now doing one at a time, one after one. Yeah, so it's like less stressful and more of the concentration. That's called dharana, concentration. And the concentration is actually like, it's like choosing and focusing on an object. Choosing and focusing on an object. And if you move on to the seventh one, which is called Dhyana Meditation. The meditation is like focus, extending the duration of the focus. Your concentration, you improve now. Now you're extending the duration of the focus, and which will help the final state of which you call samadhi. It's over here, called absorption or oneness, which is like all this, like it receives our complete attention. So this is like this whole frame of the work, that's like living morally, healthily, to have a peaceful life. So that's what this Astanga, or the 8 limbs of yoga, all this, you can say like the wheel, Yama, niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, dharana, Dhyana, and samadhi. These all gives you a moral and healthy and peaceful life. And it's like this, this philosophy shows this whole framework gives you an insight about what is really yoga mentioned in Yoga Sutras by Patanjali. I felt also it's quite helpful to know the philosophy, because it's like, I felt like it's like a medicine for me. And also it's like a seed. Like every step has its own uniqueness, which we're gonna touch all this Yama, niyama, Pranayama, and all this stuff now, Pratyahara, more deeply on my next videos. I'm gonna like more elaborate and literally do proper like a framework now, so that you can understand more deeply what they are. Today actually we're discussing like kind of going through it. So yes, and he said, if you naturally, our outer thoughts, words, and actions directly affect our inner state and vice versa, cleaning our sacred body, breath, and heart and mind from the inside and the outside in purifies, refines, and prepares us for the ecstatic connection with our divine inner light of awareness, which is called Purusha, which is our true nature. So this is really like pretty cool, like what this Yoga Sutras that by Patanjali, what he mentioned about practicing the limbs of yoga eliminates impurities and reveals the light of knowledge, and leading to the continuous and keen sense of discernment. That's what's said by the Yoga Sutras with Patanjali, talking about Astanga Yoga. If I give you a little bit more explanation about ashta, 8, anga is limbs, 8 limbs of yoga means union, or yoga means to join or connect or control. There are different meanings, and if that union helps you to control your body and senses, and the most important to control is your mind. Once you control your mind, it prepares for the focused absorption, which is called samadhi, the final state of the 8th limb, which is here. Okay, I would like to show you something here. I'm not sure you can see or not. I draw a little cartoon down here. It's like a she or he standing like a confused mind or something now. I draw the letter. It says they are the rungs. Okay, they are Yama, niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, dharana, Dhyana, and samadhi. And you see that yoga is standing up. Maybe I take it a little close. You can kind of see now. I'm not sure you can see here. Okay, and the steps. It's kind of like this absorption, the 8th, the samadhi. Well, so that's about this little explanation about, little cartoon thing. Anyways, so, and also, yoke means in English, if you like, in English generally, it's kind of like the hook they use for the animals. Well, I kind of did my math. This kind of inspiration comes from my studies, and that many have mentioned earlier about this. It's to hook the animals to control, move from side to side, So it means controlling our senses, breath, and our mind, and to create that firm steadiness and that stillness, stilling the mind, to prepare ourselves to be the final state of absorption, samadhi. So these are the steps that you have to know. I mean, you really have to do some study and understand each one of it and how it works. The external, the internal, the posture, the breath, the withdrawal of senses, the concentration, meditation, and the absorption. Now, if I break it down even more, now the first 2, which is Yama, niyama, if it is they direct you to control your behavior, the external behavior. And the 3rd and the 4th and the 5th, which is niyama, asana, pranayama, it actually controls the breath and your senses control, like one after one, the 3, 4th, and 5th. And the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th is actually specifically controls your mind. All these needs to prepare for the oneness or absorption for the samadhi. So these are like preparing for the meditation. So these 8 angas or parts, steps, help you to cultivate the skills to require for the meditation by teaching you how to control your body, breath, senses, and your mind. You think you're getting it? I think so. Well, do some math, like do some search, Astanga yoga, or buy some like this great book called The Path of Yoga Sutras, Patanjali by Nikolai Bachman. These are like a practical guide to the core of yoga. It's very helpful, guys, to start. If you practice yoga, you have to know these 8 limbs about it, okay? So once again, don't just think yoga means just a physical practice or a pose that you make. It's much more than that, much more than that. Finally, I would like to share this framework for living an authentic one's life, or being oneness or absorbed, living more morally, healthily, and to find a peaceful life. I hope my sharing helps from this Astanga Yoga, and I'll see you next week with the more deeper topics, and we're gonna go through the breakdown so you get more insight about what are those 8 components or the 8 limbs of yoga, Astanga Yoga. Thank you for watching. Namaste. Bye-bye.